Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to ITV News. This is Monday night's calendar.
Hello, thank you for joining us. Here are tonight's main stories.
Ice hockey tragedy. Family and friends rally after a player loses his life in a freak accident in Sheffield.
Couldn't believe what had happened last night. Disbelief, and just the place fell silent. Fans both sides crying, screaming, trying to get out. Utter shock.
Job losses. Hundreds of workers are told to down tools at a Yorkshire double glazing business, leaving staff angry.
I'm disgusted. My husband went round to the supermarket Friday night and come back and he was absolutely distraught because he'd got a text message to say he were out of a job after 22 years.
Why thousands of baby lobsters hatched in Whitby have been released into the North Sea.
And the surprise ceremony at a care home in Leeds for one unsuspecting veteran. But first tonight to a sport in mourning after thousands of ice hockey fans witnessed a fatal collision in Sheffield that led to the death of a 29-year-old player.
Adam Johnson, who played for the Nottingham Panthers, was injured when the blade of an opponent's boot cut his neck during their game against Sheffield Steelers at the weekend. Despite frantic efforts on the ice and in hospital, he couldn't be saved.
It's prompted a huge outpouring of emotion, with more than £14,000 raised for his family online and flowers being laid outside the Utilita Arena in Sheffield, where our reporter Jonathan Brown is for us. Jonathan, an incredibly traumatic couple of days.
Yes, that's right, Sally. It's been an incredibly difficult time here for people in Sheffield, and that's perhaps illustrated best by what you can see here behind me. Despite the rain, we've got mourners here tending to hundreds of flowers, handwritten notes and candles, all in honour and in tribute to an opposition player, as the ice hockey community comes together in solidarity. All this after thousands of people witnessed in person the traumatic injury that led to the death of Adam Johnson. So emotions here in Sheffield and down in Nottingham are of course understandably raw.
It's long been a place of joy for ice hockey fans, but today it was one of sorrow. The tributes and flowers mounting outside the home of the Sheffield Steelers after a loss that nobody could have anticipated.
Throws it towards goal.
It was during the second period of this Challenge Cup tie with the Nottingham Panthers that tragedy struck. 29-year-old American Adam Johnson collided with a Steelers player, sustaining a cut to his neck. He died in hospital from his injuries. In the hours that followed, some of the 8,000 people who witnessed the collision travelled to Nottingham to pay their respects.
The place fell silent. Fans both sides crying, screaming, trying to get out. Just utter shock. When something like this happens, there's no rivalry. It's, everyone comes together.
You just don't expect to go out to play a sport that you love and not come back, basically.
It's just horrific what's happened, so just wanted to be here with all the other fans and Sheffield fans too.
On Sunday, Adam Johnson's coaches and teammates joined mourners, offering this message.
We just want you to know that we're all grieving this together, the team, the community, city, and we're all going to get through this together.
Their bravery applauded, while elsewhere 29,000 people took part in a minute's silence at Hillsborough, ahead of Sheffield Wednesday's game with Rotherham. The Elite Ice Hockey League postponed the weekend's remaining games, and in a statement posted on the Steelers' website said, "The thoughts and condolences of everyone connected with the Elite Ice Hockey League are with Adam's family, friends and teammates at this incredibly sad and difficult time. Many of us will have found Saturday's events very distressing. Please take care of yourselves and each other." Those sentiments taking precedence, as long after these flowers and messages are gone, the memory of what happened is something people here will long be left with.
Well, Jonathan, what's the club had to say today?
Well, Sally, we did contact the club for a comment today. They didn't want to put anyone in front of camera, but they did want to place on record their thanks to a number of fans who did try to help on Saturday night. They said 8 members of the public who were medically trained tried to assist medics in treating Adam Johnson before he was taken to hospital. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain. Meanwhile, South Yorkshire Police has said today that some of their officers have been here at the Utilita Arena as their investigation continues, but they have urged members of the public to avoid speculation whilst their inquiries are ongoing. All the while, for the people here who were here on Saturday night, they're being urged to seek the support they need.
Jonathan, thank you very much. And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in that report, you can find links to a range of advice and support services on the Calendar website. That's itv.com/calendar.
Yes, a terribly sad story. In other news tonight, a court has been told that a hospital worker plotted a lone wolf terror attack against St James's Hospital in Leeds and RAF Menwith Hill after being radicalised online. The jury at Sheffield Crown Court heard that 28-year-old Mohammed Farouk had a bomb made from a pressure cooker and a bag full of other weapons when he was arrested in the grounds of the hospital in January. He's pleaded guilty to possessing an explosive device with intent to endanger life, but denies preparing terrorist acts. The trial continues.
Now, there have been huge job losses with the news that more than 700 workers for the Bradford-based window and door firm Safestyle UK are to be made redundant as the firm goes into administration.
There were angry scenes at the company's factory near Barnsley as workers were told in the car park they'd lost their jobs. On Friday, they found out by text that their jobs were likely to go.
In total, with contractors and other workers in the supply chain, it's thought as many as 2,000 jobs may be at risk.
Meanwhile, administrators have said that existing customers will not receive their orders, and customers who are midway through the installation process are being advised to seek alternative installers. Our reporter John Hill has the latest.
Well, until last Friday, these workers were inside the factory gates just here. This is Wombwell near Barnsley, the main factory for Safestyle, where they make the windows and the doors. But the staff, 100, 200 here, 600 in total, received texts saying they should down tools because the company was seeking to go into administration. Now, just over there, staff are being taken in groups to be told just what is happening. It's led to a lot of anger.
I'm disgusted. My husband went round to the supermarket Friday night and come back and he was in absolutely distraught because he'd got a text message to say he were out of a job after 22 years. They knew Friday. My husband overheard a conversation in factory. They're rushing all jobs out on Friday to get them out because they knew they were shut in. It's heartless and it's disgusting.
Well, people are now spilling out of this meeting on the site, and it was the news that they feared they've lost their jobs. As of now, you're redundant.
But I'm redundant. That's like 18 years, and that's how they finish you. They're probably, I don't know, too upset.
I didn't even get the message or an email to say that I lost my job.
How do you feel?
I feel like, well, me and my wife work here, so that's totally out of money, and we're not going to get paid. So I feel gutted. I've been here 20 years. She's been here 16 years. That's 36 years. Well, we've got to try and claim our money back.
I think it's a completely shocking state of affairs that people who have worked really, really hard, some for over 20 years, have literally had to stand in the rain and be told they've lost their jobs. It's completely unacceptable.
Well, this is a well-known company, not least because of its high-profile TV adverts, but the administrators say it has ceased trading because of fragile consumer confidence and the inability to secure new finance for the company. It means that most of the 750-strong workforce here and elsewhere will lose their jobs immediately. 70 staff will be kept on, but only in the short term to ensure an orderly wind down of the firm. For this workforce, it is a bitter end. John Hill, ITV News, Wombwell.
Well, thanks very much for being with us for Monday night's calendar, and still to come on the programme, a medal decades overdue for a special veteran.
Weather-wise, it's an unsettled week ahead and it's time to batten down the hatches as Storm Kieran heads towards us on Thursday. I have a full forecast in just a few minutes.
The family of murder victim Gracie Spinx say their lives will never be the same again as the inquest into her death opened today.
Gracie was found with stab wounds in a field in Duckmanton in June 2021. She's believed to have been killed by a former colleague, Michael Sellers, whose body was found 150 metres away at a short time later. Adam Fowler was at Chesterfield Coroner's Court as the jury was sworn in. Lots of details came out at the inquest today, didn't they, Ed?
Yes, a jury of 6 men and 5 women were sworn in here at a packed Chesterfield Coroner's Court this morning, and then the coroner outlined the details of the case. He described how in April 2020, Gracie Spinx started working at a company called Xbite, where Michael Sellers was her supervisor. The two met up a few times outside of work, but in December of that year, she told him that she wasn't interested, something that he found hard to accept. And then in January, before work, she went to a field in Duckmanton where she tended her horse and found him waiting in a lay-by. She reported him to work, who investigated and ultimately dismissed him that February. And that's the month she also reported it to Derbyshire Police, who visited them both separately, but ultimately took no further action. Then in May, a bag of weapons was found at that very same field, and it contained knives, a hammer and an axe. Again, this was reported to Derbyshire Police. The weapons were taken to the station, but no further action was taken. Then on June the 18th, her body was found with 10 stab wounds, one fatally to the neck. She died at the scene. His body was found a short time later, 150 metres away. And it's these various reports to Derbyshire Police that will ultimately be the main focus of this inquest. Tomorrow we hear from the first of 8 current or former officers for Derbyshire Police. They're expected to give evidence, and this whole inquest is expected to last for the next 4 weeks.
OK, Adam Fowler live at Chesterfield Coroner's Court. Thank you.
Well, next tonight, to the warning from medical experts to check hot water bottles after a sharp increase in burns injuries. As heating bills continue to cause many people financial concerns, they're a popular way of keeping warm on cold nights.
But medical experts have sent out fresh warnings to check yours are not more than 2 years old after reports of serious burns from leaking bottles went up by more than a third in the first 6 months of this year. A warning that Nick Smith's report does contain some graphic images of burns.
Often seen as a low-cost method of keeping warm in winter, hot water bottles are part of a bedtime routine for millions of households. But data from the International Burn Injury Database, covering England and Wales, claims serious burning incidents from when the bottles leak or rupture are on a steady increase.
Yeah, good boy.
Georgia Hatton is still suffering from her injuries. A year after she received second and third degree burns, when her hot water bottle exploded one night after her mother Claire had prepared it for her to take to bed.
It was one of the worst moments of my life. All I can remember is the piercing scream I let out. I was in shock as well. I didn't process what had happened.
I had terrible mum guilt because I made that hot water bottle. When we first got her pyjama bottoms off, it was just red, but then literally within minutes I started seeing these massive blisters come up on her leg. I honestly didn't think hot water bottles could cause so much damage.
I'd say about 6 weeks I couldn't walk. I was in hospital. I was in the burns unit for a week. I couldn't put any weight on my leg. Traumatised now. I've got a bit of PTSD from hot water and things like that.
Hector doesn't like the water too hot. Boil the kettle, but let the water cool for about 10 minutes before filling.
The NHS has produced several warning videos on how to use hot water bottles safely. Kira Bowers is a consultant burns and plastic surgeon at Pinfields Hospital in Wakefield and says hot water bottles should be thoroughly inspected.
I would advise everybody to check any hot water bottles they have in their house and see how old they are. After that time they start to fatigue and they're more at risk of rupturing. And the types of burns that we see from hot water bottles are either that the hot water bottle has leaked or burst, causing a scald injury, or that it's been directly in contact with the skin for too long, causing what's called a contact burn.
Those at the Children's Burns Trust say the rise in reported injuries is alarming, and they think it may have a direct link with families looking to minimise the cost of heating bills.
They are taking older bottles out of storage
They're looking for cheaper means of keeping warm. They are using bottles that have perhaps deteriorated and thus split. But we would advise that they look at the bottles that they've got. There should be around the neck of the bottle a flower sign with an indication of the year and month of manufacture. And frankly, if that is more than 2 years old, they should discard it.
Some wise words to take extra precautions, as the impact of a faulty hot water bottle can potentially last a lifetime. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Some of those burns are nasty, aren't they? And it's often the things you don't think about that are the most dangerous. I mean, who would think to check the date on their hot water bottles?
I never knew about that little flower logo there.
That's good
so I've
knowledge,
learned
isn't it?
something new there, Sally.
Very good.
Good. Now then, the therapeutic value of taking dogs to visit hospitals, schools and nursing homes is well known. But have you heard of chickens being used in therapy?
I can't say I have, Ian. No, not until now. Well, a new academic study showed that hen power not only helps to beat loneliness and depression, it also reduces the need for antipsychotic medication in care homes.
Well, the birds provide companionship, confidence and a feeling of well-being to people in need. Chloe Oliver has been to find out more.
These curious chickens have proven to be more than just egg layers, offering therapeutic benefits that can significantly improve our mental health. The hens are surprisingly affectionate, and some say interacting with them offers a genuine emotional connection.
I was diagnosed with PTSD quite a few years ago, and in 2019 I had a big mental health dip where I was close to suicide. And it became very, very evident very quickly that animal therapy is huge, and this place saved my life.
This therapeutic farm all started with a few hens. Now Cluckingham Palace, as it's known, has rescued over 400 caged chickens. Craig helped start the farm after his son Connor, who is autistic, struggled to find work.
Big Bird's our little star. We take Big Bird out to nursing homes, so we do a lot of work with dementia care and with nursery schools as well, you know, with under 5 children, and we educate them on animals, and so we're just not scared of them and stuff, you know. He's quite a character. He's a bit of a gentle giant.
Now hundreds of thousands of children with learning difficulties have got up close and personal with the animals here. Noma Lange works at a mental health hospital in Doncaster and says animals like chickens motivate patients with their daily routines.
So sometimes people just need someone to be there, something to hold, something to cuddle or pet, and it just gives that feeling of just being listened to without even saying much. And I think we encourage it as occupational therapists, that people have something to look forward to, someone to look after.
And a report by Northumbria University and the charity Hen Power found those living with dementia in care homes significantly benefited from chicken visits.
Whether that being a kind of a maintenance of a quality of life or reduced agitation and things like that. But what we found beyond that in terms of added value was that they had additional benefits for the home, so things like improved conversation with the staff.
By letting these feathered therapists into our lives, we may find a surprising and lasting improvement in ours. Chloe Oliver, ITV News.
Across the Steel City, finally a win for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, about time as well, Sally. They've waited a long time for that as well. But it was a Derby Day delight yesterday for Wednesday as they got one over their South Yorkshire rivals, Rotherham United. It was former Millers striker Michael Smith that came back to haunt his former side. After tapping in for his first, he got the second shortly after to ensure Wednesday got their first win of this season.
And of course there was another Yorkshire derby, wasn't there? This time in West Yorkshire, Leeds v Huddersfield, and Leeds certainly had the upper hand.
Oh, they did. They blew Huddersfield out of the water. It was a breathtaking performance, Ian. And it's one Leeds fans won't forget in a hurry, and it's one Huddersfield Town fans are trying to forget in a hurry. Leeds United manager Daniel Farke called it electrifying and unbelievable as his side scored 4 first-half goals. Michael Hellick did hit back for Huddersfield in the second half, which was nothing more than a consolation. Now let's take a look at the rest of the weekend's action now. And Corey O'Keefe's diving header rescued a point for Barnsley as they drew with Fleetwood in League One. Mansfield remain the only team completely unbeaten in the Football League after beating Walsall in League Two. And Doncaster continue to climb up the table. Joe Ironside's penalty the only goal in their game with Grimsby. And finally, from me, you remember on Friday we previewed 2 friends, Gary Swift and Stephen Harrison from Sheffield, who were preparing for a 24-hour snooker-thon. Well, I'm happy to report they completed their challenge yesterday afternoon and reached their target of raising £1,500. Gary can now go and represent Team GB at the World Ability Games in Thailand. And congratulations to them. Let's hope they're having a well-deserved rest.
Let's hope so. It's a great result for them, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic.
Go have a rest yourself, Aaron.
Oh, thanks, I will.
Thanks very much.
When can I have a rest?
Not yet, not just yet. Now, thousands of young lobsters have been released into the North Sea off the Yorkshire coast as part of a scheme to boost their numbers. They were raised from eggs by the Whitby Lobster Hatchery, which aims to rear 100,000 juveniles every year to ensure the population is protected into the future. Members of the fishing industry say it's a significant step forward for its sustainability.
Lobsters today are a really commercially important species for our coastline, and they're fished very extensively, and we're here to try and make sure that those populations of lobsters are protected long into the future.
Oh, cute little babies, but not when they get bigger. Now, finally tonight, they claim they were treated like guinea pigs by their own country during nuclear weapons tests during the Cold War. Thousands of veterans were sent to witness atomic bomb trials in the South Pacific in the 1950s and 60s. They say exposure to radiation caused some to develop cancer and genetic defects, which run through their families to this day. Well, the Ministry of Defence says studies have found no link between the tests and ill health.
But now, decades later, as you may have seen on the programme last week, surviving nuclear test veterans and the relatives of those who've died are receiving medals to mark their contribution and sacrifice. And today, there was a special surprise ceremony at a care home in Leeds for one unsuspecting veteran. Michael Billington was there.
Recognition at last for 88-year-old Jeff Holgate. A medal ceremony decades overdue.
Very many congratulations, and there's your medal.
Which for Jeff this afternoon was more than a little surprising. Did you have any idea any of this was going on?
No.
And how does it feel?
Really good. Yes, it's not long to Remembrance Day.
Well, how proud will you feel wearing that medal on Remembrance Day?
Yeah, it'll be good. Really good.
The Air Force veteran was one of 22,000 people who took part in Operation Grapple, the largest set of nuclear bomb tests in the Pacific in 1958. He's received his medal in a ceremony secretly organised at his care home after a decades-long campaign by veterans to have their service acknowledged.
We have to put our hands up like that and just and we had our backs to the weapon, and eventually it did explode, and we could see through the side of our hands.
And you were given no protective equipment or anything?
With no clothes and nothing, just like that.
Just a pair of shorts?
Shorts, yeah, pair of shorts, and we took towels ourselves, tied them round, caps on, down over his eyes, and so I don't know how it went on.
It is disappointing it's taken so long, and even in the last week we've been reading that there's other veterans that have died that are just a week off getting the medal. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to receive it, so for him to be here and to have the medal, I feel very fortunate.
When you think back how many years it's been since Jeff made his contribution with so many others at the time, and what it has given to us over that period, another one of the reasons why we are here to commemorate what he did.
Campaigners are still fighting for compensation, saying military chiefs knew that men suffered ill health as a result of being exposed to radiation. That is something the Ministry of Defence has denied. But for Jeff, finally having that medal on his chest is a small step towards his country acknowledging his service almost 70 years ago.
It's a long, long time now, but we've got it now.
Incredible testimony there from Jeff Holgate. What a very well-deserved medal it is for him too, all those years on.
Definitely. Lovely to see him being made a fuss of today. Now then, let's see what the weather's got in store. Here's James Wright.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hi there, good evening. It's already been an unsettled start to the week. Plenty of showery rain around. That's courtesy of this little low here. More to come through tomorrow. Another bucket of rain on Wednesday, and that's even before we start talking about Storm Kieran. That's going to bring some very strong winds and another bucket load of wet weather. Of course, all of this wet weather falling on pretty saturated ground, so the risk of more flood issues is ever present. As far as this evening goes, well, this first front kind of breaking up. One or two still quite heavy bursts through the evening, and then it kind of peters out just in time for the next band of rain heading in our direction. One or two breaks in the cloud, but that said, mostly grey and gloomy up on the higher ground there. Temperatures, well, fairly mild, 8 or 9 Celsius. Tomorrow then, this band makes its way up across us. Fairly slow moving, that could be an issue because I think where we see some heavier bursts there, it's falling on the saturated ground, so it wouldn't take too much to see a bit of surface water flooding. The good news is that front comes up against a bit of high pressure, so it sort of peters out, and we might even see something a little bit brighter emerging further south. That said, it still may stay a little bit gloomy up on high ground. Temperature-wise, well, 10 to 12 Celsius isn't too bad, all things considered. Not feeling too bad if you can get a bit of brightness. But then more showers, more rain, then back to more showers through Wednesday. Temperature starting to rise because we're going to see a little bit of warm air coming up from the south and the west. Then, as far as Thursday goes, this is where things get messy. Heavy, showery rain and lots of strong wind.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
All that rain on the back of the rain we've just had, it's a real worry, isn't it, for those places that are vulnerable to flooding?
I know, yeah, a few houses already been flooded. You'll not be looking forward to that, will you?
Absolutely not. That's it from us.
Yeah, that's it. Time to say goodnight. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.